Hey guys, welcome to this week's.
Wait,
We're
what?
gonna be talking
not my
about
thing.
Isaiah.
Why isn't that? Oh, hold on.
We're
Do you
talking
see
about
how
Isaiah.
this, like, is so messed up?
We're gonna be talking about
I'm trying to fix
Isaiah.
that, show.
Guys, I just need some peace and quiet. Hey guys, this is Andrew with another Sabbath School short, and this week we're looking at lesson number 5, which is titled Noble Prince of Peace. Y'all need some peace? I know I need some peace. So let's jump into this, looking at the memory text for Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, which says, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." And you know, I know I need some peace in my life. I know you need some peace in your life. And you ever tried to make peace in your life? There's so many times when we just fail. I don't think perfect peace is possible for us as humans, which is what Sabbath afternoon kind of brings out with this quote. It says, "Peace is an elusive dream for the human race. It has been estimated that since the beginning of recorded history, the world has been entirely at peace only about 8% of the time. During these years, at least 8,000 treaties have been broken. During the half century following the end of World War I, which was supposed to be the war to end all wars, there were 2 minutes of peace for every year of war." And the point is that perfect peace, guys, it's not attainable for us, no matter how many times we try to do it, even as a government, as a world standpoint, even in our own personal lives. We can't seem to maintain perfect peace. But there's hope because there's someone who can, and his name is Jesus Christ, and that's what this lesson is all about. So looking over at Sunday's lesson, which is titled End of Gloom for Galilee, the quote that jumped out at me, it says this: Isaiah chapter 8, verses 21 and 22 describe the hopeless condition of those who turn to the occult rather than to the true God. Wherever they look, they will see only distress and darkness, the gloom of anguish, and they will be thrust into thick darkness. By contrast, there will come a time when there will be no gloom for those who are in anguish. And it's talking about in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 1, it uses the phrase nevertheless or but as a transition phrase. Even though this is happening, nevertheless, this is happening. And this is where God has pronounced a judgment in Isaiah chapter 8, but in chapter 9, he provides an even greater hope with a prophecy pointing forward to Jesus Christ. And this prophecy specifically singles out the region of Galilee, which is actually really interesting to think about because Galilee was the first kind of province that was conquered during the time when Tiglath-Pileser III was kind of on his campaign with Assyria, and they conquered Galilee first. So in Isaiah's message, the first to be conquered is the first to see deliverance, and we kind of see this echoed actually in the life of Jesus because it's not by accident that Jesus' early ministry was in Galilee first. He gave hope by announcing the good news of God's kingdom, by healing people, including delivering the demons from people, delivering demoniacs and from the bondage of the occult and all these things, where Jesus performed his early ministry in Galilee first and brought redemption to them through his presence in Galilee first. There's a pretty cool little comparison there, a little connection there from the Old Testament to the New Testament of Jesus working in Galilee. And then looking over at Monday's lesson, it brings out Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 and 7, which is the first part of our memory text is Isaiah chapter 6, but let's read verse 7 too. It says, "The dominion will be vast, and its prosperity will never end. He will reign on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish and sustain it, with justice and righteousness from now on and forever. The zeal of the Lord of armies will accomplish this." And the quote that jumps out at me from this lesson talking about these two verses, this beautiful messianic prophecy that's read a lot during Christmas time when we think about the birth of Jesus. The quote that really stood out to me, it says, "Only one person fits. Jesus Christ, the divine Son of God and Creator, who was born to us in order to save us and give us peace. He has received all authority in heaven and on earth, and he is with us always. While retaining his divinity, he also has become human for all time, ever able to sympathize with our weaknesses. Unto us a child is born forever." Jesus Christ is the fulfillment of this prophecy, and this is a child for us. Jesus Christ came for us to save us and to bring in peace. But the unfortunate thing is that the effects of sin are still around us, and I think this is why we still can't have perfect peace. Perfect peace won't come until Jesus Christ comes again in the second coming to end everything, to end all sin, all evil, all injustice, and put it all to rest and usher in a beautiful eternity of peace. And I can't wait for that day. It's going to be amazing. Jumping over at Tuesday's lesson, which is titled The Rod of God's Anger. And the quote that jumped out at me here, it says, "What we see here, as seen all through the Bible, is the reality of free will. God made humans. He had to, otherwise we could never truly love him. And freedom involves the option to do wrong. And though time and again God seeks to woo us by revealing his love and character, he also will allow us to face the fruit of our wrong decisions, pain, suffering, fear, turmoil, and so forth, all in order to help us realize just what turning away from him leads to." And this is talking about the pronouncements of judgment that God puts on his people. And it brings up a very interesting point, is that the pronouncements of judgment all happened in stages. It didn't all happen at once. And this is a really crucial point to understand, because all through these stages, God is trying to show to his people that the purpose of these judgments are to bring them back to himself, to see, look, this is what life is like when I'm gone, when I'm not present in your life. And I'm trying to show you that through these stages, instead of just pronouncing it all at once and wiping them out. He's giving them a chance to believe. And I think that this is a really important point, that God punishes his people in stages so that they could see the results of their poor decisions and let them have a chance to make a better choice, to trust in him. And God has entrusted to us the freedom of choice, and he asks us to be good stewards of that freedom of choice and to choose to follow him. And that's his invitation to us. And that's why we can see the effects of sin, and that's why sin has pain attached to it. Sin doesn't come alongside of peace, of goodness. Sin comes alongside of evil and injustice so that we can see, wow, that's bad. I don't want that anymore. But God comes alongside as a character of love, of goodness, to starkly contrast against that so that we can see that he's good and help us to turn to him and understand the differences between good and evil. So looking over at Wednesday's lesson, which is titled Root and Branch in One. And the quote that really jumped out at me here, the description fits only Jesus Christ, once again, who is both the root and the descendant of David. And it's talking about Isaiah chapter 11, which talks about the stump of Jesse and then the root of Jesse, which is also this messianic prophecy pointing forward to Jesus Christ. We don't have time to go into Isaiah chapter 11 fully, but the point is this, is that it's all pointing forward to Jesus Christ. It's all pointing forward to Jesus Christ. And then looking over at this quote too, which is also in the same lesson, in Wednesday's lesson, that really jumped out at me. It says, "In Isaiah 11, both comings of Jesus are presented as one picture. They are tied together because they are two parts of a whole, like the two sides of a flat plane. The plan of salvation to be completed requires both comings. The first, which already has happened, and the second, which we await as the consummation of all our hopes as Christians." And Isaiah 11 is a beautiful prophecy, once again, that we can hold on to, because we know these prophecies are true and they will happen because God speaks them. And because God speaks them, they will happen regardless of human cooperation. We talked about that last week. But this really cool idea that these prophecies are going to happen because God says so. And Jesus has come again, or Jesus came once, so he's going to come again. And we have that to look forward to. And then looking over at Thursday's lesson, which is titled You Comforted Me, looking at Isaiah chapter 12, verses 1 through 6, and how this chapter is kind of a short psalm. It's a praise to God for his merciful and powerful comfort that he gives to us. And the quote that really jumped out at me, it says, "Not only does the Lord bestow salvation, but he himself also is salvation. The presence of the Holy One of Israel in our midst is everything to us. God is with us. Not only did Jesus do miracles, but he also became flesh and lived among us. Not only did he bear our sins on the cross, but he also became sin for us. Not only does he make peace, but he also is our peace." This idea that Jesus is not only like the way to salvation, he is salvation itself. It's found in him. And it's this beautiful idea. And I think that Isaiah 12 really encapsulates this in verses 1 through 3. It says, "On that day you will say, I will give thanks to you, Lord, although you were angry with me. Your anger has turned away and you have comforted me. Indeed, God is my salvation. I will trust in him and not be afraid. For the Lord himself is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. you will joyfully draw water from the springs of salvation. And looking at verse 4 too, and on that day you will say, give thanks to the Lord, proclaim his name, make his works known among the peoples, declare that his name is exalted. Jesus is our salvation, and we have that blessed hope as believers in him. And then looking over at Friday, the further thought section, there's a really cool quote by Ellen White. It says this: Christ was the one who consented to meet the conditions necessary for man's salvation. No angel, no man was sufficient for the great work to be wrought. The Son of Man alone must be lifted up, for only an infinite nature could undertake the redemptive process. Christ consented to connect himself with the disloyal and sinful, to partake of the nature of man, to give his own blood, and to make his soul an offering for sin. In the councils of heaven, the guilt of man was measured. The wrath for sin was estimated. And yet Christ announced his decision that he would take upon himself the responsibility of meeting the conditions whereby hope should be extended to a fallen race. And this is, I really love this lesson. It's this beautiful idea that Jesus Christ is our peace. And I know in my life I've tried to make peace on my own. I've tried to put all the things in the right places, but yet some things just fall apart. It doesn't seem possible. But with Christ, all things are possible. So I invite you to look to Jesus for your peace, because he is the definition of peace. And when he comes again, he's going to bring in a kingdom that has an everlasting peace. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's Sabbath School Short, and I hope you go throughout this next week with a lot of peace in your life, fixing your eyes upon Jesus. As always, if you could leave a thumbs up for this video, subscribe to Advent Blueprint, comment down below, what has your experience been like as you have tried to seek peace in your life? Have you found a lot of obstacles? What has maybe worked for a little bit but then fell apart later? What has your journey been like trying to find peace? We'd love to have a conversation with you. But we hope to see you on next week's Sabbath School Short, and we'll see you then. To establish and sustain it with justice and righteousness from now on and forever. The zeal of the Lord of armies will accomplish this. I just need peace and quiet.